to Charles or other members.
There you go.
I think we're in a pretty good situation, and I think we're gonna get some feedback from this, after we submit the application, we'll get the numbers back from the state. They'll tell us our situation. If we don't agree with it, we can always go out and do an income survey.
Okay.
But yeah, right now, my initial feedback and my understanding is that they weren't quite sure about the Wilseyville community's income, so they were just gonna be using the West Point as the base income, which is a good situation for us as far as the evaluation goes, so.
But we'll have the opportunity to take another crack at it if they come back and say that it's over. Then we
Good.
can-
Estimated the Wilseyville part of the process, okay, came back at 58%, which is lower than the 60% of the classified as severe. We get an email feedback from the state board, that's what got us in the 100%. That's how we got the planning at the beginning, so
Okay.
it's already been established, and even if the income goes up a little bit, the statewide income will go up anyway, probably proportionally, so you're probably still going to be under the really disadvantaged. We're planning on getting 100% grant for this, 100% principal forgiveness.
You the man. Very good.
Got a question, Charles. It has to do with the number of properties that are going to be served with the consolidation?
Yeah, it'll be the existing West Point service area, the Wilseyville community, which is about 27, 28 homes. And the state, when you go to get the approval, they allow you a nominal amount of additional capacity. So they look at that very closely, so we're within the limits that are allowed.
I understand. My point is that how much are we going to save per year by doing a consolidation?
Yeah, that gets into the permits, so we eliminate a permit, which is,
Okay.
there's
That's a WDR permit.
it's about $12,000 a
Okay.
year for that permit.
Plus the manpower time
All
of
the
servicing?
engineering, and it goes behind it each year for the monitoring reports by O&M.
Could you give us, maybe coming back in the future, some kind of a breakdown of what that represents in a dollar figure?
Yeah, do you think we can give them that number now, Bill?
I would, no, I don't need anything exact, just,
It's a pretty good chunk of change, you know why? Because you get testing and stuff that goes, and also the $12,000 in permit fee, which has been escalating like every year from the state and the WDR. Plus the state wants us to do this. And then, which I'm gonna talk a little bit, is it also falls under the general order, so that might even drop the permit fee a lot more, because anything under 100,000, you have to go with the general order instead of the WDR. So there is, and you got a manpower savings, you got a bunch of savings up there, we have a small area and stuff. I mean,
Could-
there is, I probably figured it out, I don't know if you really want it.
could we also look at the possibility at this point of upgrading our SCADA systems up there?
Oh, that actually is included in the grant.
Okay.
I want to do something like that.
Because it is remote, and
Right,
the,
and that's the one area in our entire service area that is kind of lacking.
if we could get it to the point where we could run it off of an iPhone, that would be a big win. No, those systems are out there, so,
That's how we operate.
pardon me?
That's how we operate most of our
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah, so, yeah, the folks typically, they can just be at home and monitor
Yeah,
and,
we already have skated. The only problem is out there, sometimes you'd have to do a propagation study to see if it actually gets signal back and forth. So we've had to make some adjustments to the West Point system, like most of our pump station, for example. We had to use intermediate slide up to the West Point wastewater plant, and we bound the signal over the water plant. Same thing with the regulator, we went to the regulator over the West Point water plant. So yeah, we have done that. Wilseyville, to be honest, is such a small system. The state regional board has requested consolidation of small systems, which is why we did the Millwoods Island job. If the state's willing to give us money, we're crazy not to take it because we're gonna get the regional board support down at Sacramento to do this project. So, we really haven't pushed forward with a SCADA system only. 'Cause it's
Yeah.
very small. Could we have done it? Yeah, we've been more concentrating on, once we get the planning, then our main function has been on trying to, let's consolidate, let's save ourselves a little bit of money. We're wasting a bunch of time and money over it, so.
Yeah.
but this grant does have an O component in it for some SCADA systems,
Okay.
not the entire service area, but.
On the pump station, you're gonna have to put a SCADA anyway. We haven't put one on there right now, so it's trying to make it really come on.
Well, I think when we put the whole project together and what it's ultimately going to cost us as ratepayers versus what the state is going to give us, that's another moment that we can take back as a win to the public and let them know what we're really doing.
Right, and we do have to come back to the board with that, this item.
Yes,
We will have
yes.
the numbers at that time.
Well, I just wanted my information to be plugged into it so we already know what your staff time, because there's a savings of staff time
Right.
There's savings in many different directions, and I'd like to be sure that we account for all of that as we put the project together.
Well, that's a great idea. Operating two plants is obviously going to be more costly than operating.
And then
operating one.
let the ratepayers know, hey, this is what we've done, and this is what the savings are.
Well, I'd like to second 7A.
Just out of curiosity, how many total units are going to be affected by this?
I think West Point
Connection.
has about 155 and Willsville has a, let's say
27.
30. So, what is that? 185 units, plus there's some additional expansion capacity in there, so, whoever would connect in the future would benefit.
Another issue too, there's an integrated permit at Willoughbyville. If the state comes in right now and forces us to upgrade that permit, what that mean? That permit does not meet any type of state requirements. That was one of the issues that Douglas left also. So theoretically, and I know we're not on the, Willoughbyville isn't on the hit list right now, but at some point that could rise to a level where you get some sort of enforcement action, and they could make us upgrade this facility.
I just, the only reason I asked for that number is because I always like to bring, the public needs to know how much things cost us to do. That would be $23,750 per unit.
Right, and it just depends on when you go.
And in other words, it would not be possible if we.
Right, right. And two things real quick. One is on the heels of what Bill mentioned, our biggest savings there might be the liability going away in that Willseyville pond. I mean, because they've already looked at potential leakage and some of these other issues in the past, and I know it's been out there. But then my other question then to you, and that goes off of Mr. Davidson here, is the capacity. What does that do with our capacity by combining those two? Or where are we right now as far as reaching that capacity? And you can come back, I guess, at a different time, but.
Yeah, I know I've looked at it, it kind of escapes me at this particular minute, but, that's part of the design process. When we do get this money, we'll be looking at that more closely and making sure that we meet all the permit requirements. That's our first goal. And then you will have additional capacity. I think the way there is a report associated with this. We got a planning grant for $200,000. So there was an engineering report done to do an initial kind of conceptual evaluation of it. And then also to prepare this application that we'll be submitting and do some of the associated environmental work. So, you obviously, you want to make sure you got your bases covered as far as the capacity goes, and that you're going to be able to comply with the regional board requirements. That obviously they're very strict about making sure you have, you can contain, the 100-year storm in your ponds. I think that's probably our capacity limit right now is on storage. We did get a notice of violation a few years ago when we had those, like in 2010, when we had those big storms, they of course they come out right after the storm. Your pond's full, so.
Charles, what would you suggest would be a proposed timeline to bring this all to fruition?
We have a pretty, there was a schedule associated with that. I tried to provide a very generous schedule so that it can be easily achieved, and any hiccups along the way kind of be absorbed in that time frame. So when they give you 3 years or something like
Yeah,
that.
we're gonna have to do a little bit of schmoozing down in Sacramento, which we can do on getting the state to approve it, but within 3 years.
3 years,
We
okay.
have a pretty good relationship with the grant.
That would be the timeline for, going through the design process, bidding it, and into construction and completion.
Okay.
Okay,
Madam President, just to note on that, Director Mills, I think that the next point that I think would be logical to come back to the board, and it sounds like we have to, is when we get a decision by the state on our application, and hopefully that's, a real success story, that's what we really need to get out and give those details about what does this mean, what are the ongoing savings, probably in excess of $20,000 a year, plus all the complications of 2 permits now reduced to 1, all those things, we'll compile all that and have it ready at that time.
Thank you.
Potential liability, like.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And future liability as well, exactly.
Yep.
okay,
Motion and second. Public.
motion.
Public comment. Public comment.
Oh, okay, excuse me. Well, no, we make the motion and then we ask for public. Oh,
We got a motion and a
okay,
second.
okay.
Oh, we
Public
do,
comment?
okay.
Seeing none?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
I can't believe you stayed down for that one, Peter, but
Thanks, Charles.
thank you.
Thanks.
okay. Thank
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah.
you. Okay, 7B, discussion regarding director compensation and travel reimbursement policy 4030. Director Mills.
As part of when I was running for this position, it came back to me several times that maybe the directors need to step back and, in essence, share the pain that ratepayers have. And the idea of us accepting $130 or $140 per day meeting stipend was a little bit beyond the pale, considering that, for instance, TUD is $100 a meeting, and there's many other areas it's nothing. So my request is for the directors to maybe take this back to the Finance Committee and review it. And my recommendation, of course, would have been take no stipend, but I'm not sure that's going to pass anywhere.
You're always welcome to do that.
I know, and I probably will. But the point is, maybe that we step back to $100 a meeting during this time when the rates are as high as they are, until such time as we get our financial house in order, and then come back and maybe review it again at a future date. The other thing is having to do with travel. I very strongly feel that our professional representative in almost all cases would be our general manager, and that he has the expertise and the background and the knowledge to do the work to properly represent us. And I would defer the majority of the travel to him. I'm sure that there's going to be times when directors are going to need to be in certain places to learn certain things and to represent the district in a different way. But I also feel that the general manager should have the priority in those travel arrangements. I don't know if anyone's really familiar with how much the directors spent last year on travel, and this is not their meeting stipend, this is not their insurance plan, this is just strictly travel, was $25,723. And some directors were very astute in their
Which
what
ones
they
were
were doing.
that? Because I really don't like being
Thank you,
painted
Mr.
with a broad brush.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. You were one of them that I consider very astute.
Thank you.
In the amount of money you were spending. Yes, there's times where directors have to travel, but coming from a business background, even if I wanted to go to Grand Junction, Colorado, I had to make a business case for the reason why I went there. And I had to show return on investment and why, that they could actually log after I had been there as to how much were we going to bring back as a result of the expenditure. It isn't just about going somewhere. It's about can we make a proper report out of the meeting that we were at to the rest of the directors and to the public as to what was the advantage of our being there, and why did that give us an additional piece of information we may not have had. So I think there has to be some level of responsibility from the board and accountability for the things that we do and the ways that we get paid for what we do, and the travel expenses are one of them. So I would recommend that this go to the Finance Committee for them to look at and review and come up with some methods of checks and balances that each director is held accountable to. I can tell you in the past, we've been the subject of a grand jury investigation over this very thing.
When?
Back in 2001. And so I would just like to be sure that we don't have any thing that we do that may be, in the public's eyes, not totally transparent.
Do you remember the outcome of the grand jury investigations?
Yes, they had three options on it. One was to actually file a suit against the individual, but I think that they chose the third option, was to bring it back to the board and let the board.
The individual no longer works here today?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we just want to be sure that everything that we do is in place, and that we are doing our work for the right reason, and we're expending the public's and the ratepayers' money for the right reason.
I have a question. There are a number of these items that Director Mills has worked diligently on that I agree with, and there are some that I do not agree with. As a result, what is the best way to allow for collaborative work on this across the board? Is that to first go to the finance committee and then come back to us, or that we have a dialogue, which we've not had
Maybe a
yet?
workshop?
Yeah, workshop. And based upon the outcome of that workshop, then take that to the finance committee.
I'd like to put my 2 cents worth in. I've actually fought very hard to reduce the number of meetings that directors have taken, and many times argued about the validity of the meetings in their relationship to the district. It was my board action that reduced the compensation level from 10 meetings to 7. I don't have a problem taking a look at the stipend. It's certainly not an issue for me. I lose money every time I show up at the water district. I can assure you of that. But I think that the policy, I think one thing that would be great is, I know for a fact that several of you board members are going to need to have some training required by law. I'm not trying to say that you need training. It's going to be required by law. I'd like you to kind of go to a couple of those, see how it feels, see how we can relate your experiences into this policy, and then get with the general manager and staff when we have the appropriate time. Because while I agree this is an issue that the public will get excited about, we're talking about .0000 something of our budget. There are probably more important items, but I'm willing to look at it at any time. But I think it would be helpful if, because you guys are going to have ethics training. It's a requirement by law. There's sexual harassment training. There's a lot of these things that you're going to have to go to.
Right.
And I think after you have that experience, you'll have a better idea how it works.
We've both been to ethics training.
Already? Oh, good.
And did you want to say something, Scott?
I'll go after you.
Oh, okay. No, I've also looked through the policy, and I was now questioning, I would want every one of the directors to be able to
Have a discussion.
have some dialogue about this. I agree with the stipend we receive, and by the way, we're due for another 5% increase, because that's the way it's set up. Every year you get a 5% increase. So the cost, or what we would be paid, is up to $140 this year. And so
It will be raised 5% July 1. So
well, that's what I meant.
40 in July 1.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We will be sitting here when we get an increase to 140, and I made this comment several months ago when I was running, when I was asked about what we received to go to meetings, and I said, when I was elected in 2001, I thought $100 was wonderful. So 135 is just, wow. I would agree with Director Mills as far as going back to $100. That's fine. And so we'll wait to hear when we can get together and as a group and bring our suggestions.
And, Madam President, my suggestion would be that we do take this to the Finance Committee, and sometime in January, as soon as we know the composition of the committee and we can agendize, of course, those will be noticed meetings, so we'll go through that, the public can attend and speak up on that if they have issues. And then we can come in, and in preparation of that, maybe we can bring some examples to you. I know you've referenced other agencies. The one thing I really believe in doing is, why recreate the wheel on a lot of this stuff? I mean, we're one of many, many agencies across the nation doing this. Let's look for some best practices, in other agencies, maybe give you some options to look at in addition to your own thoughts, and work it through that, and then come back to the board if you want to make the changes, bring it back to the next board meeting, and the board can take an action on that at that time if it desires to.
Yeah, I have no objection to that at all.
I didn't let Scott talk.
Oh, okay, no, I also agree that the 135 and growing every single year is kind of ridiculous. And going back to 100 is still, no compensation is probably more fair. But I do, Director Davidson does have a point, when he does show up here, that he, losing money at his other job. The other, and I'm sure I'm one of the directors on the low end of the spending on an annual basis as well. There are some.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Director Mills.
Don't we get grades or anything like that?
If you want, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good policy to look at and set an example. Thank you. For the rest of the public on our spending.
Because ultimately, we create, the dynamics of the board here is going to create the personality for the district, and it will bleed down to the district. And if we show a professional and an accountable behavior, hopefully that will trickle off to the rest of the business profile, and that we all start to look in that direction of how are we being accountable for the ratepayers' money. Even if it's a nickel or a dime, it's still a nickel or a dime. And we need to have that start right here at this board.
Any further comment? Public.
Director Davidson likes to use this analogy of it's only .001 of the budget. I've heard it many times. But you know what? If you do that 10,000 times, it actually runs into real money, so kudos to Director Mills. Thank you.
10,000.
I like to make that people get upset with me. So, I would suggest the board might want to give some seasoned members a GCP, Global Positioning System, because in the past, we had folks, I call them the three amigos, who went to Washington DC, but they got lost to Gettysburg for a day, and then they got lost in, was it Malibu or something?
Don't you dare look at me and say, and accuse me of doing that, because that has never been true of me.
Okay,
I was never in any of those places.
Excuse me. As far as I'm concerned, I'm addressing the chair. Now, if you have any comments on that, please, don't hesitate after I finish. Okay, let's get that straight. Now, if somebody wants to earn money, automatic pay raise, if you earn that, that's fine. But you shouldn't get it just for your good looks, or you've been able to stay on the board for so long. And it's not just you folks. Where's Cliff?
He left.
5% because you survived? Get real, folks. Get paid for what you produce, not what you say you want to do. Let's show it what you accomplished. Simple. Because I tell you something, no veterans, no senior citizen, nobody in Social Security gets an automatic 5% increase. And Contra Costa County getting a 38% increase, okay? I don't know how long they're gonna last. The Board of Supervisors, 4.2 or 4.7% automatic because they lasted that long. Well, I just got one vote. But I'm very proud that my prayer's been answered. Calaveras County Board of Supervisors got a whole new staff, folks. And I think I saved the taxpayers a good pile of manure money because we got a new board and they don't have to keep paying that 4.2, 4.5% pay increase.
Well, thank you very much. Well, we heard you, we addressed you,
so.
and
Thank you.
I just want to make it clear for the record that I never attended either of those places, never been to either of those towns that Peter looked at me and insinuated that I'd been at.
I didn't mention any name, but the shoe fits, we're in.
The shoe, we'll see about the shoe.
okay, excuse me, George.
Is this public comment
Yes.
still? Okay.
It's a little more than public comments. But go ahead.
Yeah, I guess so. My attitude about giving back to the community, and I've served on 2 different school boards. One of them, there was no compensation. And the other one, I didn't take the compensation. And all of my adult life, I've believed that you take from the community you live in. And so I believe you have an obligation to give back to that community.
Amen.
And to serve the community, the people in the community, and to serve them at no expense to the board or commission that you're on. And that's something I've lived with all my life. And that started for me when I was 14 years old, and John F. Kennedy in his inaugural speech said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country?" And it has stuck with me. ever since then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Joe Kelly, take offense to the idea that every time Mr. Davidson shows up, he loses money. If that's the case, resign. Open it up to somebody who wants to sit there and doesn't necessarily care about the monetary reward as a board member. I appreciate your service, but what you state puts a psychological change in my attitude towards the board members to anybody that would say something like that. You came here to do a job. You came here voluntarily. You got elected. Well, you volunteered to be elected. You got elected.
That's right.
So if you don't like the job, you lose money, then go back, leave here and go back and cure your consequences of your life.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I hope this is all the discussion. We will be taking this to the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Am I doing any?
No,
Okay.
No motion needed or anything
No,
else?
no.
Okay, cool.
just deferred.
Who, 7C, discussion, action regarding nomination of general manager for a position with Aqua Region 3. Dave?
Yes, Madam President, this is just a request for the board to authorize nomination of me as general manager to the Aqua Region 3 Board. I just want to be clear, if any of you desire that nomination or are interested in that, I'm more than happy to step away. The reason I'm bringing this forward is I have been a member of the Aqua Region 3 Board for a number of years when I was employed at El Dorado Irrigation District and then El Dorado County Water Agency. There's basically 10 regions of Aqua. Region 3 is essentially the Sierra Nevada, the Mountain Counties region. It plays a very important role in our advocacy efforts on just like the things we heard today on forest management. We've been able to drive some really big changes within Aqua, which is the largest water industry organization in the state, representing 90% of the water purveyors in the state, that has a lot of muscle in Washington and Sacramento. We've been able to actually, within the last couple of years, and Calaveras has played a lead role in that, CCWD, having them adopt policy principles for management of headwater areas to do things exactly like that Supervisor Edson was talking about. And we just found out, I just found out when I was at the Aqua Conference, that one of the top 10 priorities for the new Congress is our headwater management issues, including the forest thinning. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm sure that this plays a part in it. So again, this is just ask authorization to put my name in as a nominee.
I have a question. Is Aqua then going to be reimbursing you for your related expenses to represent?
No, and that's why I have to come to you and make sure that you're supportive of that. The way that the meetings typically, the board meetings happen are quarterly. Many of them are by phone. When they are in person, it's going to be within the region, so it would be somewhere that would be, there's no overnight stay or anything like that to attend those meetings. And then additionally, the others would be at the conferences, which I would be attending anyway. So the cost is, maybe a few drives, within several hours. That would be in the entire year.
Well, I appreciate you stepping up, and like I said before, you are the trained, knowledgeable individual in the water industry, not me. So I see you're the option, you're the only option for this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there were board members who were very active in Aqua, but
So I think Aqua is an important a group of agencies to be involved in, and they do create policy, and I think it's very, very important for CCWD to at least know what's going on there and if we can be a part of it, it's a huge, huge plus.
and with someone who has the background in it,
Yes,
that's
and
greatly appreciated.
You bet. And one example of that, Director Ratterman, is the fact that on SB 1199, this county and Amador brought that issue forward to Aqua, and Aqua actually took a position that was aligned with where we were at, which was, that's very influential to have that in the legislature, to have Aqua weighing in support of your position.
Well, I move that we adopt Resolution 2014, what number? To nominate the CCWD, to nominate Dave for the Aqua Region 3 board member.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Public comment?
Don't look at me with that. What I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to suggest this to Board of Supervisors, nowadays there's some modern electronic units available. I get to talk to my rallies back in Hungary, Budapest, with all the pictures on it, called Skype. Somebody could, some people at the Board of Supervisors won't like it, but you can set it up, you can stitch and you can listen in, and you can have conference quite adequate. It doesn't mean that somebody like me would get up and say anything, and I'm sure that would please everybody, but you could take advantage of modern technology.
You did hear him say that a lot of them were phone conferences, right?
Well, that's something like a phone, but actually you can put on a big screen and you see actually who's talking.
When did that start?
Skype?
Yeah.
Well, we used GoToMeeting in my business world. We used GoToMeeting in our business world with AT&T.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it saves money, save efficiency. I mean, some dumb foreigner like me can talk to my rallies back in Budapest with all dozens of them at the same time. I'm sure with the great knowledge and experience, somebody like a general manager, I'm sure they could arrange it. And then you can all be informed at the same time. Thank you.
Well, I would assume, or I'm hoping, that if Mr. Egerton finds that would fit into his schedule, he'd look at that by...
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes, and sometimes it's better not to see the people you're talking to. It's better to hear them because they're not great to look at, but probably people think that about me. But we do try to use conference call as much as we can.
Thank you. Any other comment?
I just want to say that Aqua would benefit greatly by having Dave's participation as a board member.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I can have a motion?
You have a motion?
We did.
Second.
Oh,
Call for
I
the
did
question.
already? Oh, golly.
Call for the question.
Okay, call. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Committee reports. Has everyone left their committee, or are you willing?
I don't know that we've had
Probably haven't had
committee
any.
meetings.
Haven't
in
had any meeting.
The last meeting.
All right. Legislative update? Oh, Larry does a legislative update.
Not at the moment.
Oh, okay. Reports? Dave Egerton, General Manager.
All right, I just wanted to, introduce myself to the members of the audience and anybody else who may be tuning into this. I really appreciate having this opportunity to come here and represent the community on water interest, on your water reliability, and yeah, just to give you some background, I came from, I've been in the water business now for, gosh, this is going on in my 12th year now. I have a background in law. I graduated from UC Davis Law School, started out in corporate law, found my way into local government work, and then into the water business. I've been in the same region in the Sierra Nevada, but on the El Dorado County side, working on water issues, many of which are very similar to what this agency and community are dealing with. And on many of those, I actually work side by side with this agency on those. Just like BDCP, the comments that we submitted, jointly prepared and submitted on the big tunnel project that you probably saw the headlines in the paper about. Things like that, we worked side by side, and it gave me an appreciation for the resources and the quality of really the caliber of what this community and agency can bring to the table. Since I've been here, that's really confirmed and been confirmed in my mind. I've been most impressed really by the quality of the people that work here and just their dedication. And I want to do everything I can to help them get their job done as effectively and efficiently as we can. And there's really a tremendous base to work from here. And I just, it is a real honor. I have a background in water rights and water law. I know that's one of our biggest challenges is how do we preserve and protect and maximize the benefit of our water resources, our water rights. That's something I want to come back to this board with in short order to start that discussion. I also want to be having that conversation with the public. You know, there's never been more competing demands on the water supply, water rights of California. This community has some of the most senior and precious water rights in the state. But the reality is, if that we just stand by and don't take care of those and appreciate and really invest in those assets, we very much could see those go away in time, and that would not be good for us in our future, in our children's future. So that's a prime concern to me, and I just wanted to express that, and thank you.
Okay, Larry Diamond.
Some of the board members may be aware that we have property leases with a few telecom outfits across the county, and we've recently had a number of additional inquiries, some for modifying existing placements and some for new placements, and we'll continue working with those folks to see if we can reasonably accommodate them without impacting the future planning of facilities on those sites. Also want to let the board know a number of staff members are continuing to work with the CHIPS outfit in their program up there in Wilseyville on the property adjacent to the West Point Wilseyville sewer treatment plants. They have a number of obstacles to overcome, and they have hired some folks to take them on one at a time. Progress is slow, but it's inching along.
Jeff Myers.
Just one moment, I've got to set up a quick comment.
I might say something while Jeff is setting up. I've watched this man over the last, 4 or 5 months, going to meetings, et cetera, and he is one gentleman that is very well put together in terms of his presentations, his spreadsheets, his background. And I would hope that, everybody would try to emulate that as we go forward. It's very impressive to watch the details that he can put into a presentation.
Thank you, Director Mills. Madam President, members of the board, good afternoon. Knowing that this meeting has gone on for quite some time, I'd like to make this brief for your benefit and the benefit of the audience. But I do want to continue what I've done in the past. Generally, the first board meeting of the month, I update the board on our capital renovation and replacement program, the projects we're working on, the expenses, and the revenues. But since we have 3 new board members, I thought I'd step back just one bit and look at the overall CIP program, our capital improvement program that was adopted in June of 2014. This is our fiscal year 14-15. I've got so many fiscal years here going on. Capital improvement program budget, both for water and for wastewater. I'm going to talk about water first. These are the projects that were approved in the program that was approved. We have a Redwood Tank Replacement Project, Ebbets Pass Reach 3A Pipeline Replacement Project, Tank Management Plan, Ebbets Pass Techite Water Line Replacement. We also have the Ebbets Pass Reach 1, the Jenny Lynn AB Transmission Line, and also the Pipeline Replacement Program. These are projects that are funded by multiple sources, and I'll get into that in just a moment, but I wanted to kind of give you an update as where we are. And I'll look at the funding sources when I go through this program. As you can see, the top project is the Redwood Tank Replacement Program. This is a project that Charles and Bill have worked through, CalEMA and FEMA, to get pre-disaster mitigation funding for it. The first that I've heard of. Usually when you talk about FEMA, it's after the fact. We're trying to get ahead of it. So we've got a 25% local funding match, which comes in to $334,000, and it's a $1.2 million project, and the rest of it's going to be federal money, CalEMA and FEMA money. It's going to start this summer. And then when I look at a CIP, it's generally could be a 3-year program, planning, design, and construction. But remember, our fiscal year ends June 30th. Generally, our construction season up the hill is summertime, so it'll border 2 fiscal years. That's why you don't see the entire amount budgeted for this year. When we're looking at the reserve amount, that's our match. We're either going to take it out of reserves or some of our capital R&R funding, depending upon where we sit at the end of this fiscal year. We have an opportunity here to go look at our CIP program again through this budget process, see where we are standing on our revenues, our reserves, and our R&R funding, because we have a number of key projects coming up that are expensive. And I'll get into that one in just a second, which, next one up.
Well, before you leave that one, Jeff, how many tanks are in that project?
I think we're taking down 2 and replacing it with 1. Carlos?
There's more liability there than that number does not reflect. That's more or less just a planning number for, probably just the planning phase. I mean, we have a lot of tanks that need attention,
Right.
unfortunately.
No, this particular one.
And,
Yeah.
So that number does not probably reflect our true cost.
It's 2
It's
times.
2 tanks on this particular
Thank you.
one, the Redwood tank. The Reach 3A, that's the one that we're working on currently, trying to finish up design. We're hoping to go to construction this summer. It's about 18,000 linear feet in the Ebbets Pass area. And that's one of the transmission lines where we've been experiencing a number of breaks over the time frame. We're looking at a $5 million project. When we started out, it was going to be funded just by R&R funds. Now we've had the opportunity to work with USDA to get a combination grant loan package. We're going through that process. Currently, we think we're eligible for a $1.3 million grant to help offset this cost. And the loan package would be the difference in that. However, what we're looking at doing, USDA has told us we can pay off the loan after day 1. So we can use some of our R&R loan proceeds to pay this off, so we no longer have an obligation to USDA. USDA requires a loan grant match, so you have to get the 2 of them together. So if we want the loan, we want the grant funds, we have to get the loan to go along with it. But bottom line is this is at least a $5 million project. And that's why you see all the money out of R&R. That's before USDA and Frank Rizzo, who we've worked with over a number of years, has stepped up and said, you know what? There's area in there that's a disadvantaged community. We can provide you some grant funds to go along with the loan. The next item is the tank management plan, which Charles was alluding to. We have a number of tanks out there, some redwood, some steel, that need to be rehabbed. And that's an ongoing process. We're going to do some of that work in the summertime. Jenny Lynn has a tank that we're going to be looking at this summer.
Yeah, I may have misspoke. You have a budget established and we're going to work within the budget, but that's not the full extent of future obligations.
It's the start of the process because they have to be maintained. You don't let them deteriorate to a point where you just have to replace the entire tank or significant repairs. We want to have they're working on creating a program where we will keep them maintained, but it is a significant amount of money just to do the periodic maintenance.
Question, do we have an established life cycle on the redwood versus the steel tanks?
Well, the redwood tanks right now, we managed to convince that we're getting fire resistance material grant money is what we're getting.
Right.
Because they don't fund structures. So all of our redwood tanks right now, in fact, are eligible for fire resistance materials and grants. The only thing is we've got money right now, once those projects completed, we'll fill out a notice of intent and request for the, I think it's like a $40 million cap per request, but you can do that till they're all in place. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Every one of them leaks, usually once a year we go around and try to plug them as much as we can, but the fact is they leak. The fact is we get a 100% chance of having irrigation problem in this county every year we have an irrigation thing. So it is eligible. It's not eligible as a structure, it's eligible for fire resistance materials. Whatever they want to call it. But ends up being a 75-25 grand.
Well, my question still had to do with life cycles.
Life cycle on river tanking, 50 years, 60 years.
50 years, okay. And
You can't, they don't make them anymore. There's no companies that maintain them anymore.
Well, they've got chemical issues too, don't they?
Disinfection, I'm not sure.
It's a theory of the 885.
The biggest issue with these tanks is they burn down. And when we had a fire in my neighborhood, the Pattison fire, several of them burned down, and we had to shut all the water supply for that area off, because they just fell down inside themselves, so we couldn't use them. And that particular area is, I mean, we all know what can happen there. And if they were to burn, we'd have to do the same in that area. So this is a really important thing for the Evans Pass area.
It'll be a big step, big step.
And this is a process we started a while ago in the West Point area, when we had a USDA and Prop 84 grant. Not only did we replace transmission line and a pump station, we replaced the Redwood tank.
And we also got DWI to pay for some of the matching funds too.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're trying to do it as grant funds become available, and we do identify it as a liability.
Excellent.
The next item, actually the next two pipelines up in Evans Pass, the Techite and the Reach One. Techite is kind of put on hold for priorities and timing. The Reach One, we're going to start design later on this year. So perhaps what we're looking at, depending upon available funding, is construction season 2016, work on the Reach One project. And then the Jenny Lynn AB transmission line is basically on hold again for priorities. We just don't have the resources right now, either staffing or funding, to be able to move forward with this project. It's on our list, but when we look at it, we're really going to learn a lot once Reach 3A comes in, because we're going to learn more about the bids that come in, the construction, because it is a challenge to work on Highway 4, and especially when we go down to Reach 1. So there are going to be dollar issues, and once we get through these few, we'll see the funding that is available. The pipeline replacement program, that's something that's been a placeholder for many, many years. We do it as we have funds available. There's no funding for it this year because we're focusing on Reach 3A and then again Reach 1 as we get into the design phase. Now, the costs associated with that. Let me back up a second. As you can see, the majority of the funding for these projects is our R&R program. We do not have any operating funds available for that. We look at grant funds, which we did for Reach 3A. Once we get the authorization from USDA, their terms and conditions and such, we'll get grant funds for Reach 3A. But for the Redwood tank and Reach 3A, that's all we have right now, is the opportunity for grant funds. Everything else is coming out of our R&R program. So the funds that we accumulate through those additional fees that were implemented goes to funding these projects.
And Jeff, that's it's a good point. To the extent we can use the revenue that we have as seed money to really leverage the state funds that are available to us, we want to do in every way possible. And we obviously got a track record of being able to do that. One thing I'm thinking, in addition to some of the stuff you've seen today on what we're pursuing, we have a $7 billion water bond that's coming out within the next 18 months or so. We want to position ourselves to get funds through something like that as well.
And we do have some grant opportunities through the round 3 of the Prop 84, which is done through the IRWMs, the MAC and the T-stand. So we all aggressively go after those funds. What you see here is basically some expenses to date on the R&R program. Remember, when you look at CIP, you have multiple funding sources off of those projects that we have. We basically have spent about $900,000, a little over $900,000 over some of those R&R projects. A couple of them have been completed, the Jenny Lynn Clearwell, the Jenny Lynn Ozone Generator. We did have some leftover funds in the prior operating budgets, but the bulk of that is coming from our R&R program, so about $600,000 is coming out of those funds that we spent to date. And this is a spreadsheet that our current board members are used to seeing, where we stand. In fiscal year 13-14, we collected about $1.6 million, $285,000 of that from operating, $1.3 million from the R&R program. We spent about $743,000, leaving us a balance of $890,000. That was at the end of last year on the water side. Remember, though, that a lot of these larger projects tend to go over multiple years, because again, you're in design, planning, design, and construction. Plus, our Reach 3A project has been delayed a little bit because we found out about the grant opportunities. It's not as if we didn't want to complete it, start it last year or this current year. We had opportunities to go after money. And that's why we looked, because when you go through USDA, they have to review your plans, all your CEQA, all your documentation, along with financing for their approval. And that takes additional time. So far this year, we have collected $791,000 in additional revenues. We've expended $190,000. So at this particular point in time, we've got $1.45 million worth of funds. A lot of that's going to be used in the projects that we're looking for going forward this next construction season. Now, on the wastewater side, we have a number of projects that were included in the budget. The Copper Cove Reclaim Permit Project, which you approved the bid award today through Bill's agenda item. That's something that's ongoing, that we're looking to really save the district money from a proactive approach that Bill has done through the State Water Resource Control Board. West Point Wilseyville Consolidation Project, which Charles brought to you, and that you approved the resolutions to apply for the grant. Right now, we're at the worst case scenario, we're thinking it's 25% local match. If we do that, if we have to have a match, we'd be looking for a combination of reserves and R&R money to do that. We're hoping to get full 100% principal forgiveness. But we won't know until the application is approved and the terms and conditions letter is provided to the district, laying out the grant proposal. And at that point, obviously, we come back to your board. We have a couple of projects that we have on our wish list. The Avery Main Lift Station replacement, that's if we have funds available and the timing, we'd like to look at that for completion this summer. The Forest Meadows Highway 4 Forest Main replacement, that's going to be pending dollars. Again, we'll take a look and see what we have available to us. One of the things to keep in mind, when we look at wastewater versus water, we only have about 4,800 wastewater customers. So we're not pulling in the revenues like we do on water. So we have very limited resources there. So we have to really prioritize it. But we have some upcoming projects that once they're complete, we'll know how much funding we have available to move forward. And that one is, the big one is the Copper Cove Lift Station 22 replacement project that has been awarded, and we're going to be looking at construction late spring, early summer for that. And that is a large dollar item, $1.6 million.
Jeff, is it a reality that we can't transfer water funds over to sewer funds? Sewer funds are dedicated for sewer, water funds are dedicated for water. It's a big reason, one of the big reasons that the sewer increase was so much higher.
That is correct, Director Davidson. Thank you for bringing that to up. One area that we're going to be looking at a project this summer, lift station 15 and 18 electrical upgrades. We have, I forgot the term, but basically you have confined space, equipment down in a confined space area. And you have liabilities there. We want to address those. We upgraded our lift station 9, 10, and 11 earlier this year. Similar issues. We have corrosive issues in these lift stations. It's something that if you would think that you'd have maybe a 15 or 20 to 25 year life cycle with the corrosive nature of these confined spaces, it's much shorter than that. So we have a number of lift station upgrades we have to do, and this is one of them that we have scheduled for this summer. The Vallecito Storage Pond Expansion Project, that is something that was applied for with Prop 84 money, round 2. We got some funds. It's on hold at this time because we found out there's more permitting issues that we have to address, especially since the size of the dam and the storage pond. We're looking at alternatives and trying to work with DWR to try to maybe modify the scope of the project or get additional money in round 3, which is coming up next year.
Yes.
General question, is this actual Title 22 water?
We'd like to get it to be Title 22 water, and that's what part of this grant is, to move in that direction.
And if we were able to do that, would we possibly want to start talking to UPUD about transferring it into their irrigation system?
Larry, can you bail me out on this one?
It is Title 22, we have less than
Yeah.
QNT,
Yeah,
and we also have less than.
Not sure I want to comment on that.
so we're in the range right now.
We have very good drinking water, I don't want to say, wastewater, I don't want to say compared to drinking water, because it's inappropriate.
Right.
That water is super high quality, in the Napa Valley, yeah, they use some vineyards and stuff. Actually, one of our plans was to try to use the cement storage line, send the water down in there, and we use it downstream, is what we're actually thinking about trying to do.
Yeah.
The water is super high quality.
Well, I would just like to see if the staff would look at UPUD as an option, since the irrigation line is a dedicated line on the south ditch.
I know there's been some talk also about working with the local vineyards to provide them
Correct, yeah,
with
through,
irrigation water, so that they can pull back on the amount of raw water they're taking out.
Exactly.
So that was part of this process as well.
yeah,
That's also a permit issue too.
yeah, it would be,
That's right, the state water board.
Right.
yeah. I just want to be sure all of our options are dealt with there.
You know what it is, that the plant, we were lucky enough to get 100% grant for those, but the water is super high quality, we just need some place to put it. That's what we need. Because this is it's just a really very much of it's a good all-around product. The next step is finding this.
Excellent.
The next two items are something that Director Davidson alluded to earlier in the meeting, Copper Cove and La Contenta Cove, or La Contenta, whoops, there shouldn't be a cove there, capacity plan updates. And instead of complete redo of our master plans for those areas, we're looking at the capacity charges that are associated with it, especially once we get this new permit for Copper Cove reclaim plant. Once we have that in, we'll have a better idea of what our requirements are, and we can go back and revisit those capacity charges. But we'll have to complete that process first. We do have money set aside for that. Pipeline replacement, obviously, is something that's ongoing. There's one item I left off the list, and that's Copper Cove Lift Station 3, 12, 13, and Force Main Bypass. We don't have any funding for that, but these are some of the long-term projects. And this is a funding recap. You can see on the expansion side, the expansion funds, that's where we're planning on drawing funds for these capacity fee updates, both Copper Cove and La Contenta. We do have some grant coming in for the Wilseyville Consolidation Project. That's a planning portion of it that was already approved. Now we're looking at the design and construction phase. That's the grant application you just approved. This was a planning grant. And then we're also got $200,000 from Prop 84 for the Vallecito project. But you can see that, you know, the grant or the dollar amount here for the projects this year is about 1.9, almost $2 million. Part of the loan package that we took out last year, we had $2.3 million in loan for the wastewater side, which would, and the reason we took out that amount, that dollar amount, is we were looking at the lift station 22 replacement project. So, and that's about a 1.6 million. So it was critical for us to be able to get those loans, to jumpstart and get the dollars to be able to do these large projects. There's a lot of liability on the sewer side, and that's why we have to look at these. We can't go on any longer. Bill can bring you up, and maybe the engineering committee is a place where you can really take a look at the projects where there's liability involved and how we're moving forward. We've spent on these projects in the capital R&R about $740,000. And this translates over here in time, $740,000 on the bottom right-hand side. The thing that I want for you to come away from here is we have completed some big projects here. The Millwoods Intertie. We're looking at Poker Flats Lift Station 9, 10, and 11, which were significant projects. We moved ahead. We're working on the Copper Cove reclaim. There's just a little bit of dollars there, but you'll see moving forward. Once we do this work, it'll be close to $250,000. Bottom line is,
over the last 2 years to date, we have only pulled in $830,000 worth of capital R&R funds on the sewer, yet we've expended over $740,000. We have